Nikaido and Rei has been one of the most well-developed character dynamics in Three Gatsu no Lion. The relationship between Nikaido and Rei would be seen as a friendship, but it turned out to be a bit more complicated than that. Nikaido and Rei are different people with different perspectives on their relationship. Rei is quite a distant and reserved person, so even though we can assume they were close friends, Rei's behavior made it seem like there was still a wall between them. Nikaido, on the other hand, was overly open to being even best friends with Rei despite Rei's reluctance. The story is mostly told from Rei's point of view, so we see his version of the relationship a lot more. Throughout the series, there were many major turning points that strengthened their relationship, which led to the two of them finally start feeling like proper best friends. In their most recent shogi match, Rei ends up playing against Nikaido in a big tournament. What makes this match very special is that it is mostly told from Nikaido's perspective. As mentioned earlier, we normally see the relationship from Rei's POV. Getting Nikaido's POV and his insight on his relationship with Rei felt like it was the final piece of the puzzle to complete their special friendship. In this video, I'll be going over the major points and moments of the Nikaido vs Rei match and talk about how it became the biggest turning point in their relationship thus far. If you end up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also support my Patreon for early access to more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Now, what exactly made Nikaido vs Rei so special? Let's talk about it. Everybody get your fucking hands up. The Shishio Championship is one of the most prestigious tournaments in the series. Talented shogi players throughout the country aim to win and become renowned in the shogi world. There is no better stage to have our two lifelong rivals battle in their first major official match. The winner advances to take on Shimada, which will lead to them to challenge the champion, while the loser is eliminated and has to try again next year. With the stakes and expectations at an all-time high, we finally head towards the clash between Rei versus Nikaido. Before Nikaido faces off against Rei, he laments on his earlier victory over Shigeta. He was embarrassed that they both decided to play a more aggressive and primitive style instead of one that shogi masters everywhere will respect and acknowledge. He continues and says that despite the embarrassment, he has a deep respect for Shigeta's spirit and it inspired Nikaido to match his energy. He gave some insight and said it may be because they were not satisfied with the current state of shogi and deep down went with a style that is unconventional. He finishes reminiscing about his earlier match and decides to put his focus on his future battle with Kiriyama. As the match starts, Nikaido was expecting a more sophisticated clash with Kiriyama, but instead, Kiriyama was inspired as well and chose to play with the same style as Shigeta. Nikaido was surprised at how relentless Kiriyama was at pursuing Shigeta's unconventional playstyle and makes continuous comments on how he won't give in to Kiriyama's pressure. After some more back and forth between them, Nikaido remembers that Kiriyama got a girlfriend recently and wonders if that's the reason he's so upbeat and excited. He makes a joke about how Rei was actually more reserved and subdued back in elementary school compared to his overexcited young adult self, but that reminded him of one of the biggest worries he has about Kiriyama's future. Nikaido says, "I've always been worried about it, that a time would come where you got yourself a significant other, and shogi was no longer the only thing that occupied your mind. That you would change. That dazzling, glaring, shadow-like shine might fade, and that I'll lose the greatest comrade of my adventure." Compared to everyone else in his life, you can argue that Nikaido has been the person who watched over Rei the longest. They have been playing shogi with each other since a very young age, and they still continue to play with each other even today. Rei was who he could call his best friend and his partner in crime. Because of that, Nikaido is able to pick up on things about Rei that many other characters are not able to. Rei has always been a unique person who had to endure very difficult circumstances. Because he almost lost everything, Shogi and the Koda family were his only escape and salvation. You can argue that shogi didn't give him happiness, but it did help give him purpose and a sense of belonging. Nikaido most likely had a hunch that this was the case for Rei and was worried that what if something or someone else was to not only give Rei happiness, but also purpose and a sense of belonging? What happens if Rei no longer needs shogi to fill in the void of his heart? As Hayashida pointed out, Rei never once said he wanted to become Maijin despite being so skilled, hardworking, and talented at the game. Nikaido was worried that he may lose that shining light of the shogi world known as Rei. Now that Rei has received that happiness, what happens with Shogi? Only time will tell, but for now, it was great seeing Nikaido's insight as he was one of the very few people who was watching over Rei for that long. The next chapter starts with some powerful words. Kiriyama, the greatest good fortune I've received in my life, has been existing in the same era as you. Nikaido has unfortunately been plagued with a disease that severely limits his physical activity. Despite his riches, he's usually stuck in a hospital room in an attempt to recover from his disease. As other children enjoyed their childhoods playing, Nikaido was forced to only enjoy himself through his own imagination. He eventually got into shogi, which is one of the very few activities he could barely manage, and a place where he is treated as an equal to everyone else instead of just a sick patient. However, due to his sick disposition, even at shogi events, Nikaido struggled to keep friends and play around. He was often seen by himself in a corner somewhere trying to keep his body stable from his disease. Living a life like this is incredibly lonely. Shogi was his answer to his purpose in life, but what will help him get through his loneliness? Here comes Kiriyama. Kiriyama was someone who struggled connecting with others and could hardly make any friends. After the death of his family, improving his shogi was his only means of survival under the Koda family. Shogi also gave Kiriyama a purpose in life, but it still wasn't a friend or a companion. At shogi events, similar to Nikaido, Rei would also be found in a corner somewhere by himself. Because of this, Nikaido soon realized that every time he was lonely and unable to keep up with the other kids, Rei would be right beside him suffering from the same thing. They may have different circumstances, but it still led them to live a similar lifestyle and childhood. Because of this, Nikaido felt like he had a friend, a companion that he could relate to and take the painful loneliness he felt away. Nikaido was already exerting himself too much by even playing shogi, so it became very difficult for him to continue to find good reasons to keep struggling. As said earlier, he noticed Kiriyama was in a similar position to him, and despite Kiriyama's reserved nature, he was still honing his skills and kept working hard to secure a better future for himself. Nikaido says, "When I looked to my side, you were always there. I no longer even had the recourse of surrendering to despair. With you next to me, with those pitch dark eyes silently focused wholeheartedly on moving forward, no matter what nightmarish path I was going down, I was able to grind and bear it 30% more." Rei was someone who gave Nikaido strength. He was a guy that reminded Nikaido that he too can continue to work hard and succeed despite also struggling by himself with loneliness. Nikaido continues by explaining how he turned his anger towards his unfortunate circumstances into energy that he would use to overcome them. He uses his misfortune as motivation to prove to himself and to the world that he isn't just a miserable boy destined to suffer and fail. Nikaido received a lot of success using this mental strategy and knew Rei was very similar in using his unfortunate circumstances to keep his motivation for success high. Despite the similarities between Rei and Nikaido, there was now one key difference between them. Rei has now lost his unfortunate circumstances by finding a home and a sense of belonging with Hina and the Kawamoto family. The love and care he was always searching for, the happiness he always wanted, is gradually being filled up by the Kawamoto family to the point where he does not have to rely on shogi for his identity anymore. Losing that big motivational push that Rei's unfortunate circumstances had worries Nikaido, since theoretically it would lower Rei's conviction and make him worse at shogi. Nikaido claims that it is such a waste for Rei to lose his brilliant shine and starts to think about what he would do if he was also given a chance to lose his unfortunate circumstances as Rei did. As Nikaido was about to agree that he would rather keep his painful struggles, he realized that's not true at all, and he would most definitely welcome being cured immediately. He continues on and says he wouldn't even need his unfortunate circumstances as a springboard for success if he was cured in the first place. It was merely a way for him to cope, not something he needed for success. He keeps going and says one would probably lack talent anyway if they needed something extra like that to push them to succeed. Nikaido says, "Even without that spring, I'll search for every last way to improve that's out there and go full force on a different route as I make my way to success." He then comes to a realization about Kiriyama that answers all his worries. He says, "Oh wait, I see. So that's it, huh, Kiriyama? You started searching, didn't you? With every ounce of your mind and body to find a different route. You finally reached it, huh? The place that matches your name, the starting line where it all begins." This is one of the best monologues in the story, and it's one that not only has multiple layers, but also one that recontextualizes the theme behind Rei's name. Nikaido, since the beginning of the match, gave insight on how worried he was that Kiriyama would lose his spark or his drive after finding a girlfriend and a place to belong to. The role that Shogi used to fill is not only replaced, but is way more fulfilling to Rei than it was before. In this case, wouldn't it only be a matter of time before Rei abandons Shogi since he no longer has a need for it anymore? Thinking like this is not necessarily wrong, but it is a mindset that uses Rei's loneliness and emptiness as a springboard to help him reach his full potential. It also implies that without those things, Rei will not be as good or as talented as he currently is. Again, this isn't a bad theory since there's strong logic behind it. Because of how Rei's life turned out, he absolutely needed Shogi to survive, and that hardcore grind gave Rei a very charismatic light, despite it coming from such a dark place. For those who are not aware, the word Rei in Japanese could refer to the number 0. At the beginning of chapter 1, as a way to establish the tone of the series, we get a short monologue from Kyoko. She says, "Your name is Rei? What a weird name, but it suits you." What? Did I say something wrong? No home, no relatives, no school, no friends. There isn't anywhere in this world you belong, is there? Kyoko is someone Rei treats as a sister, which made such hurtful words sting even more. There was a sense of truth to them as well, so the name Rei has always been associated with things he lacked and craved for but couldn't achieve. This negative association with his own name made it difficult to have an optimistic outlook on Rei's life and future. However, with just a few lines from Nikaido, he completely redefined the way Rei should be associated and turned it into a symbol of Rei's persistence and diligence. After worrying about how Rei escaping his misfortune might ruin his future in Shogi, Nikaido put himself in Rei's shoes and realized that he himself would actually be very happy to escape his own misfortune as well. He also claimed that he wouldn't abandon Shogi and would just search for any and all ways to improve himself, even if he can rely on his old, disheartening circumstances as a springboard to his growth and success. As he was thinking this to himself, he realized that this is the path Kiriyama was currently on. It may be true that he might not see Shogi as the only lifeline to potential happiness anymore. It may be true that his skills may get worse if he loses that strong conviction, but that doesn't mean there is no other path left for him. Just because the path he was on before was working does not mean it works the best or is the only possible way for it to work. As Nikaido mentioned, he will search for every last way to improve himself without relying on that springboard. Even though you might have to start all over from the beginning again to find a new way, as long as there is genuine effort, there will always be a way to improve. And that is the path Kiriyama Rei is taking. The boy who is named after Zero will once again have to start over and rediscover a better way to obtain his happiness. I found this message very beautiful because it turns zero from meaning the things you lack into zero meaning the beginning of your new journey where you get to discover the path to your own happiness. The next chapter continues with the shogi match. We see how Nikaido struggles to read Rei through Rei's moves. His mind starts to wander off, and he wonders if Rei truly knows the path he wants to take or if he's just sort of walking in hopes that everything works out. The match continues until we gather another memory from them back when they were kids on the rooftop. Nikaido says, this reminds me back when I was a kid and it was too painful to watch the other kids chomping away on their sweet pastries. I used to come up here crying. And at that same time, Kiriyama would be up here crying too, because it was too hard for him to bear watching the people come with their families. It's odd to think about, but all those folks back then that we used to feel hopelessly jealous of and clashed with again and again are all gone for the most part. And us two that were always bawling our eyes out are still here, fighting, even now. This was a simple statement from Nikaido, but it's one that describes the artist's journey so well. From societal standards, Nikaido and Rei were at the bottom of the ladder in their groups as kids. Just like everyone else, they were trying hard to improve their shogi, but unlike everyone else, they didn't have friends or happiness that many other children receive. With nothing but shogi, both Nikaido and Rei suffered from severe loneliness and jealousy while comparing themselves to more fortunate kids their age. But through all their trials and tribulations, those same people they were jealous of are no longer in the same arena as they currently are. This isn't to imply that those people are now unhappy, but it's here to show just how far Nikaido and Rei has come. They were misfortunate kids who had nothing but shogi, plagued with loneliness to the point where they will cry alone on the roof often, and now they're two of the most prodigious shogi players in the country. Their hard work and diligence paid off tremendously, and watching them continue to find themselves and grow makes for a very satisfying storyline. The next chapter continues with the same message and reiterates that the crowd full of happiness during the old shogi events is now gone, and all that remained is Nikaido and Rei who are still fighting. He starts to say that the only difference is now that they didn't cry anymore, but he stops and realizes that isn't true. He affirms that there's nothing wrong with crying, and that pain should be used as fuel to power you forward. His worry about Kiriyama starts to swell up again, and he wonders if Kiriyama would lose that ferocity that came with self-reliance and seclusion now that he has a partner he can cry and vent to. He wonders if venting to Hina will make him feel so refreshed that he goes absent-minded or apathetic instead of using those bottled up negative feelings as the power to move forward like usual. Nikaido knows Rei now has someone to protect, but is still worried that he may end up too soft and lacking burning passion. The match continues as Nikaido vows to stop Rei himself. Nikaido starts talking about the styles of shogi he loves the most and his favorite shogi theories. He's reading through Kiriyama's intentions, but is still mostly one step behind him. Kiriyama and Nikaido continue to go back and forth in an intense match. The viewers comment on how tenacious both Nikaido and Kiriyama are for playing so unconventionally. Kiriyama continues to move through his game plan so freely that it heavily impresses Nikaido. Nikaido starts to realize that under Kiriyama's pressure, the defensive style he chose is coming back to bite him. As the match continues, Nikaido realizes that Kiriyama's seemingly free and playful attacking style actually ended up very coordinated and created a gigantic shogi fortress that would be difficult for him to deal with. Nikaido comments and says that, all that time where you were acting all goofy, doing all that blowing, pouring in all that cement, digging those holes, going after moles, I was getting pissed off, wondering why you seem to not be taking this seriously. So this is what it was all about. Is this what he was going for, or did it happen by accident? I don't know which it is, but I do know one thing, that this play is purely Kiriyama. This is a strong line because even though Nikaido is talking about Kiriyama's play style, this could also apply to Nikaido's feelings towards Rei's view on shogi. He kept getting worried and assuming that Rei may not focus on shogi like he used to and lose the shine he had, but the Kiriyama he's playing right now is as strong as powerful as he has always been. Nikaido said he was getting frustrated that Rei looked like he was goofing off, when in reality, he was setting up for a greater success down the line. Again, this could apply to how Rei's mentality with shogi, where it may look like he and the Kawamotos will make him goof off and not try, when in reality, Rei might be heading towards an even bigger success than he's ever seen. As Nikaido starts getting overwhelmed, he remembers the words of his old shogi master, "Straighten your back." Nikaido recalls how his old master would tell him that keeping a good posture allows for better blood circulation, he's able to see more of the board, and allows him greater focus for him to turn the tables and win. We don't get much attention on Nikaido's old master, so it was great to see that his words held such a strong presence in Nikaido's heart and was there for him when he needed it. Following his master's advice, Nikaido entered a deep focus and bounced back to start his counterattack against Kiriyama. He impresses the crowd with his tenacity as they shower him with compliments. Rei then does a perfect play to shut down Nikaido's special counterattack as if he has been waiting for it the entire time. This move shocked everybody since it showed a huge gap between Rei's insight and Nikaido's. Nikaido starts having flashbacks to a quote he heard long ago. To become stronger, you need a rival. No truer words has been spoken. With maddening levels of frustration and jealousy, there lies an explosive energy. The better the one you're competing against gets, the more scorched your body becomes, and all you can do is put in all the time, heart, and brains you have in order to match it. Nikaido responds to the quote with, God Almighty. What if that rival is too good? Nikaido has always loved the idea of a rival and holds it on a high pedestal, even against Rei's wishes. For someone like that, to fear that Rei is simply too good shows just how powerful Rei can be when he's in the zone. Rei has been just a mere step ahead of him for a good portion of the match, but it was nothing Nikaido couldn't make up with just a single bold play. As the gap got bigger, Nikaido used his old master's advice to make an amazing counterattack to turn the tables. That should have been the deciding moment to swing the momentum in Nikaido's favor, but instead, Rei was waiting for that move and ended up completely crushing Nikaido in his tracks. From the start, it seemed Rei was in control, had a strong game plan, and executed it flawlessly. Being the one going against him and knowing him for so long, Nikaido had to experience this sheer talent firsthand. It's to no one's surprise that he viewed Kiriyama as a rival who was too good, but Nikaido is still not someone who would simply just give up. He continues to fight it out strong until the bitter end as the crowd acknowledges his tenacity. While refusing to throw in the towel and give up, Nikaido starts reminiscing on some old memories. It's so bright, and I hate it so much. That's right, that's how it's always been. The reason I would never just throw in the towel is probably because you were next to me. If I won, I would be so happy. If I lost, I would feel so frustrated, and devouring both, we moved forward. We would alternate being the sun and the moon as we made our way to where we are now. Thinking about it now, it really makes sense. In the end, so long as we didn't totally crumble, those matches made both of us shine. So, as much as I possibly can, even if it's just a little longer, I want this time to keep lasting. The match wraps up with these beautiful words from Nikaido. This monologue is a good representation of the bond between Nikaido and Rei. They've been through thick and thin, came from the pit of loneliness, yet are still battling it out with each other on a grand stage. As Nikaido reiterated many times, Rei is one of his biggest motivational factors in his shogi journey. Trying to shine as bright and as long as he can, not only for himself but for Kiriyama's sake as well, is why he refuses to simply give up where many others would choose to fall. Nikaido has always been an important character in the series, but this match has allowed his character to shine in ways I couldn't even imagine. The match was told completely from Nikaido's point of view and exposed many things about himself and his relationship with Rei. We not only got many glimpses of the backstory between Nikaido and Rei, but we also got important revelations like with how Rei's name signals the beginning of a new journey rather than the negative connotations he has always been associated with throughout the story. This match quickly became one of my favorites in the series, and I believe it holds major importance in the narrative moving forward. When Rei and Nikaido meet again after their match, their relationship seems to have reached a new level. They now seem like true best friends who developed a newfound respect and understanding with each other. They were always close, but now they seem like an adorable pair of siblings. This drastic change in behavior alone can allow one to consider this match as a major turning point within the series. Our main rivalry has gone through many different forms throughout the story, and this latest transformation may end up being the biggest and the most influential one. I have deep respect for Umino for writing such an elite pair of rivals, and I'm excited to see how she guides both Kiriyama and Nikaido's stories in the future. If you ended up enjoying this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Also subscribe to my Patreon for early access to more videos like this one. The link is in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.